the research began, I was like mesmerized by it. I'd start at 5, I think it'd be 7 or 8 in the evening. I'd look up, it's 2 in the morning. So there were 11 things that I came up with that certainly were things that were peeling layers of onions on this man's life that just made me push forward. A guy who was so passionate about his life and to the community and community service, having the opportunity to meet with one of the most iconic political figures in this country's history, Robert Kennedy. The way he just was able to overcome any challenge in his life, teaching himself Spanish by his middle age, so he could get a job. That's unheard of. Things where he was criticized so often for not shooting, yet he sets the Duquesne single season scoring mark his junior year. How close he was to quitting the game before his junior year when he became all city and he became a star. The importance that still today resonates from his job with Pittsburgh National Bank as a urban affairs officer. So often the people who led the bank years later still speak of him as an inspiration on what he means to the bank 40 and 50 years later. There was the fact he could have been signed by the NBA after his junior year. That was unheard of back then. He could have certainly had it all to himself at that point, but he felt it was important to come back and try to win a national championship his senior season. That was more important than him setting history at that point. The fact that nobody ever mentions that he was the second African American to be named consensus in the consensus All-American teams, and just speaks to his attitude when he went. Another thing, when he went to Madison Square Garden as a collegiate, it was the mecca of college basketball. Nothing compared to playing a game there. 18,000 knowledgeable, passionate fans met you playing some of the great college basketball in the nation. And he saved his best college basketball for them. And the fans so appreciated him, they gave him a standing ovation after. I mentioned before about him teaching himself to play Spanish. A man in his mid 40s taught himself to play the trumpet from listening to a Miles Davis album. Who does that? Who does that? I mean, that just blew me away. And just how blunt he was in the press about the situation with African Americans not getting the chance to display their talents in the NBA at that time. That was unheard of for anything to just call out organizations and coaches. And your father, he wasn't afraid of the consequences. He wanted fair. And to me, that's what separates him from even a Jackie Robinson, who was asked to just bite his lip and not go after, which was probably the right thing to do at the time. But your father wanted fair. And part of the experience wasn't just to get the opportunity, but was to get the opportunity that the white players got with the time they got, the participation they got on the offensive end, the money they got. Which again,
he grew up in that tough East Liberty neighborhood that was primarily Italian and African American, and they didn't grow up biting their lip, but they came to love and adore each other. So he had a little different upbringing.
Well, and that, to me, that pays off later on. I mean, it might not have paid off at the time, but this puts him a level above, in my eyes, any of the others that integrated the sport, because he took the next step. He took the step that could have cost him everything. And he even becoming the first holdout in Celtic history, not because he felt he deserved money over everybody else. He felt he deserved what was fairly coming to him. And back then, that's something 9 out of 10 players would have got cut for.
That's right. That's right.
So it wasn't like it is today. People equate stuff like that to, they just mouth off all the time. Not back then. Back then, your career was done if you mouthed off.
It was done. He had to train. Would have been a plane ticket. Would have been a jet.
Yeah,
He'd have had a train ticket home.
absolutely. But it was part of the experience that makes Chuck Cooper an icon in American history, not just sports history, but American history, because that's the kind of stuff that opens doors. It's not just getting the opportunity to play. It's fighting for what's right. It's fighting for what's fair. And to me, that's what gave Elgin Baylor and Oscar Robertson, the guys who eventually got to participate fully in an offensive game plan in the NBA. That's what got them the opportunity. People like Chuck pushing the envelope for that.